Baton Rouge. The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jacob Beck and Casey Gaines back there on the ones and twos. And we're locked and loaded for the next 2 hours. JD PicKell on his normal Wednesday spot talking college football. 15 minutes from right now, it's a What If Wednesday. Do have room for a couple of extras. Got a couple of submissions on Twitter. If you're in the Bayou Ford chat and want to fire those at us as well, you can do that. We'll get to those in 30 minutes. LSU claims several NCAA statistical titles following the 2023 season. I'll get to some of the records and not records, but the accolades that LSU wrapped up on offense this football season. Maason Smith is moving on. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I put this out on Twitter, and so we'll just go ahead and get out in front of it. I had an open segment on today's show, and I was planning on sliding something in there. Maybe LSU hires a defensive coach, or there's another transfer portal situation. Like, nothing ever really materialized today. So we're going to talk a little bit about baseball at 2:15. As I kind of got in the mood to do some of that last night at a fundraiser for the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame that I attended that had quite a list of accomplished baseballers last night. But we start things today on this Wednesday with LSU basketball as the Tigers defeated Vanderbilt inside the PMAC last night. Final score was 77-69, 8-point margin. I think 8.5 was the number. Vegas on the money there. But LSU moves to 2-0 in a game they truly needed to win, in my opinion. This is a team that's going to have to fight and scratch and claw for every SEC win that they get. And if we're going to assess this season at the end based on how many league games they've won, you've got to win the ones where you've got a rather decided advantage. That's not going to happen all that often, and it did last night because Vanderbilt is not very good. They are now 5-10 on the season, and LSU took care of their business last night, and it was largely due to Jalen Cook's 28-point performance last night. And it was efficient from two-point range. He was at 9 out of 12 from two-point range. He struggled from downtown, just 1 of 7 shooting, and he only had 1 assist in the game. It wasn't like he was getting a ton of people involved. But the fact of the matter is, and we continue to see this manifested when LSU's out on the basketball floor, they needed Jalen Cook on this roster. The way this team was composed, he was the biggest piece. They'd like to have Will Baker. If he wasn't able to play, they could withstand that. Jordan Wright's a huge piece to this team, but if he were out, I think that they could work around that. Jalen Cook not being there compromised this roster. He's the best ball handler. He's the best distributor. He's the best scorer. He's the best player. If you're going to make a kind of an analogy to the other college sports that we follow, he's the Friday night guy. You take him out, then you got to move the Saturday guy up. You got to move the Sunday guy up. Maybe you got to pull your closer down to start, and everything gets out of whack. He's the quarterback. You don't have him, the offense just can't function the way it's supposed to. He's clearly, truly the point guard. They've got to have him on the floor, and he was out there last night. And he was the offense. Jordan Wright chipped in with 15 points. Mike Williams, who I think is more comfortable than he was running the point, chipped in with 10 points. Will Baker had 8. And LSU did a phenomenal job of taking care of the basketball. Only 8 turnovers in the game. They went to College Station and played an A&M team that'll really turn you over. And they took care of the basketball in that game. And then they played a Vanderbilt team that doesn't really turn you over, and they did a good job of possessing the ball. I thought at the outset of this thing for LSU that LSU would be a good offensive team. I had questions about their rebounding, had questions about their defense. I thought they would be a good offensive team because I thought they would shoot the ball pretty well from the three-point line. And they really haven't done that. Last night they were 3 of 16 from 3. but they still scored 77 points because they possessed the ball and got enough shots. If you're not going to shoot a high percentage, you better get a lot of shots up. If you got a lot of turnovers, you're not getting enough shots up. LSU shot 64 field goals last night and 23 free throws. They almost doubled up Vanderbilt's free throw total. The Commodores only shot 12, and to LSU's 23. And LSU made 20 of 23. Jalen Cook was a perfect 7 of 7. Jordan Wright was 7 of 8. Mike Williams was 3 of 3. So that's 17 of 18 from your starting backcourt from the free throw line. That's a good way to win a ball game at home. Now, one thing that I was wrong about the offense on this team too, and it turns out I was probably wrong on the defense as well. So, yeah, keep listening. I appreciate y'all. But LSU forced Vanderbilt into 15 turnovers last night, and that's becoming kind of a habit for this team, especially in the steals department. LSU had 11 steals last night, and if you look at LSU nationally, they are 8th in the country in steals per possession. 8th in the country. I didn't think this team would be 8th in the country in anything. Jordan Wright is near the tops in the conference in steals. He's 4th in the conference in steals. Mike Williams is 12th in the conference in steals, and you add Jalen Cook to that mix, and he can do some of that as well. Hopefully that's something that LSU can hang its hat on. Before Jalen Cook came into the lineup, I didn't see a lot that LSU could go to consistently. I thought that might be Will Baker early in the season. It's not. Jordan Wright's not a number one option. He's very much, and has been for 4 years, a solid SEC rotational player. But he's not the focal point of an offense. He was not that at Vanderbilt most nights, and he's not going to be that for LSU. Mike Williams is a freshman. You can't really rely on him to be the guy. They're not an elite sit down and guard your defensive team. They don't block a lot of shots. They're not elite on the glass. You were looking at a team that had some players, and they beat Wake Forest, and they played Dayton really tough, and they've got some guys, but there was nothing that I could point to and go, that's the identity of the team. That's what they are. And maybe with Jalen Cook emerging now, he's the heartbeat of the offense. And defensively, if you can create some easy baskets by getting some steals and getting out in the open floor and running, maybe that's kind of the identity of who you are as a team. My outlook on this season has not changed in the last week. 2-0 is awesome. I'm thrilled. I was fired up watching them last night. I was at Pluckers doing sports trivia, and I thought they played well. But I'm not looking at this going, oh my God, they're 2-0. I think they're turning a corner. That's not where I am. But I think it's good for the program and the players to get some wins, develop some confidence, and just try to continue to improve. You're laying foundational pieces to trying to build a program right now. The win in College Station shocked me. Last night didn't. They should beat Vanderbilt at home. That's a game you should win. Talked about this yesterday. When LSU had its perennial tournament teams over the last decade, I could always point to the SEC schedule and go, we got Georgia coming in. You'll win that one. At that point, before Bruce Pearl, you got Auburn coming in. You'll handle that one. South Carolina on the road, you'll be fine there. There was generally a few SEC games, a handful of SEC games that I could point to and go, well, they're going to win that one. And with this team, that's harder to do. But this is one of them. Vanderbilt in your building is one you need to take care of. And they did that. And that's very, very good. Now, Saturday is an entirely different story. That's going to be a hornet's nest, and that's going to be a really, really difficult place for LSU to go in and remain competitive, quite frankly. And we'll break that game down on Friday. But every game doesn't have to be a referendum on the entire program. I thought last night was just a nice job. And it shows me that this team is starting to develop a little bit of an identity that goes through Jalen Cook. They've got to shoot it a little bit better to beat the better teams. You're going to beat the middle-tier team. I don't expect LSU to beat Kentucky. I don't expect them to go beat Auburn. I don't know that I fully expect them to beat Tennessee. Like, the top of the league is going to be really tough for LSU to beat this year. But if you're going to compete with the middle tier, the Ole Misses, the Arkansas, the Floridas, those teams that I think on a given day LSU can absolutely play with. You got to shoot it a little bit better than you did in this game. But you've got an opportunity to do that because Tyrell Ward can shoot. Jordan Wright can hit a hot streak. Saw Mike Williams hit 6 threes in a game in non-conference. Jalen Cook's been a 20-point-per-game scorer at the college level. He can shoot it. We know Mwani, when he's out there from the corner, can knock down a shot. Will Baker stepped out and made a few threes early in his final season. So that's possible. But last night, you were able to do enough on other portions of the game to overcome a tough shooting night and beat a bad team. Incidentally, Jerry Stackhouse needs to unbutton his sport coat while he's coaching. He looks like he's dressed for dinner in the formal 40s. Like, he's got a 3-piece suit on, and he's got all his buttons buttoned in his coat. Like, relax. Every other coach is out there in sweatpants almost. Just cool out, Stack. It's fine. He's got a couple more months on the job, but he just seems uncomfortable coaching the team because he's so dressed up. They're not very good. It's going to be a long road to hoe for the Commodores this year. But LSU wins it by 8 points. They'll go to Auburn on Saturday on what will be a really, really tough one. But starting 2-0, can't do any better than that. And shout out to Matt McMahon and the LSU basketball team for getting that done. Got a lot to get to over the next 2 hours here. JD PicKell of 1-3 Sports is going to be with us in the next segment. We'll kind of wrap up the season in college football. Come back on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
It was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
There it is, the extra mile. On the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further. Like vans customized for work or play. With safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, Our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to Six Rings Baseball.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Wednesday's Hump Day AFR, presented by Pluckers. First, Mekhi Wingo. Now, Maason Smith declares for the draft. How does LSU rebuild its defensive line? We'll discuss 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Seems like such recent past that we went out to the Jim's Farms hotline and chatted with JD PicKell back in August, and the entire football season was right in front of us, and now college football season in the rearview mirror. Okay, check in with JD one more time. Of course, host of the Hard Count on 113 Sports YouTube channel. Joining us now, JD, how are you, sir?
Brother, I'm doing well. It's bittersweet, very bittersweet, but all that to say, we're good over here, man. How are you doing?
Doing very well. I know you were at the national championship game. Paint the picture for me. What was the environment like?
It was awesome, man. And I think the cool part about something like that is no matter like who you are, whether you're an ESPN person or whether you're you Roth or whether you're Max Brown who was there with Threads or whether you're a part of College Game Day, like every single person has that same sense of kid in a candy store kind of awe, being down there being like, wow, this is it. This is the national championship game. And so it was a blast, man. It was really cool to be a part of, and something I was grateful to witness firsthand.
How was the setup in Houston?
It was good, compared. So I was there for LA, and LA was awesome. The thing with LA is there's so much else that I think grabs those folks' attention. And being in Texas, you're like, okay, we're in Houston. This is a state in Texas that like lives and breathes football, whether it's high school, whether it's Pee Wee, whether it's college. So I think the general like casual interest overall, like the floor was a lot higher. So I think that kind of added to the buzz and made it awesome, man. It was a great time.
So every time LSU's played in the national championship, it's been in New Orleans. It's just a crazy coincidence. 03, 07, 11, and 19, all in New Orleans, right? That we're so familiar with. So I've never seen the national championship game anywhere else. Kirk Herbstreit's saying, let's play it at the Rose Bowl every year. Where do you stand on that?
Man, I'm all about that. And I think I've heard several different takes which I really agree with, which is one being like we've seen college football, like the national championship sites are just so bizarre to begin with. And when you talk about like Santa Clara, California, and I mean SoFi Stadium, and I'm all for SoFi Stadium. Like I'm here for that. But when it comes to like the pinnacle of the sport, the biggest stage in the sport, don't we want to show off like the very best we have to offer? I understand like ticket prices would be difficult for folks in the South, and it's not the easiest place to get to. But when it comes to the actual game being played, like the Coliseum that is the Rose Bowl, which I guess is sort of the poor word choice there with the Coliseum being down the street. The cathedral that is the Rose Bowl, I think that's a tremendous spot for us to have the most important game of the year. And I personally would be all about that. All
right, now that the dust is settled, what does Washington take from this season?
It's a good question, man. I think when you look to the future for Washington, I think I feel good because of who my head coach is, if I'm them. I mean, Kalen DeBoer very clearly has that team caring about the right things. They were a really mature roster this year. They clearly had a great development they put together with their guys, but I think the reason why they were in that game, and it's no secret, was because of what they did in the portal and a guy like Michael Penix Jr. So Will Rogers was also in attendance for that game. I'm sure that was well documented via social media and other aspects, but he's more than likely next up in Seattle. And with how open the playoffs going to be with the 12-team model, like I don't see a reason why Washington can't be in that conversation to make the 12-team model this time next year. So overall, I mean, I think they're in a good place. Now, will they be in the national title contention every single year? Probably not. But I think there's a lot to build off of, especially with this being the short window Kalen DeBoer's been at Washington.
So you're not thinking this may be a TCU situation where you had that 1 year that was fantastic and then kind of crashed back to earth for a non-blue blood? Do you think they've got staying power at the top?
I think their floor is much, much higher. I think their floor is much higher, and I think it just – and this is not to speak ill of TCU, but, like, Washington feels a little bit less fluky. Like, I think the overall talent level – I mean, we saw that in the game against Michigan. I know the final score ended up being a little bit less appealing than probably the good folks in Seattle would have liked. But, I mean, Washington was really in that game for the majority of it. There were several – spots that you just, you can't leave money on the table against a team like Michigan. You can't miss Romadunze when he's open. You can't miss Culp downfield when he's open. You kind of got to cash in, and you can't have turnovers too. So there was a lot of just moments that they missed on, but I mean, as a whole, it was a very, very different flavor that I think everyone left with from what Washington did than what TCU did the year before.
You think that was Jim Harbaugh's last game?
Man, I hope not. I really hope not. I mean, just as a college football fan, I think he's so unique and so good for the sport. And I mean, I think if I'm Jim Harbaugh, my first question is what job is just 1,000% better than Michigan? Because at Michigan, you have stability for, probably as long as he wants it. You got the key to the city. You got your alma mater, so there's the heartstrings component there. And if there's not a 110% better job, why not run it back at Michigan? And I think the other part of this too is like his value as an NFL head coach, I can't imagine is going to go anywhere. I mean, this has been a talking point now for us 3 different years. And I know it fell through with the Vikings, but like every single year, you'd have to imagine he can get an NFL job. So if there's not the job for him, I would be at least considerate of staying in Michigan for another season. But I do think that I didn't even answer your question there, Hunt, so I apologize. I do think the NFL, just as a competitor for him, you have to imagine that's attractive. And so that's the variable that no one can really quantify right now.
So this is just a Hunt Palmer thought. I'm curious your thoughts on it. College football is a sport of haves and have-nots. There are some schools that have the tradition and the resources to compete at the top of the sport, and some that do not. And in my opinion, like Georgia and Michigan certainly sit towards the top of that, and they had long title droughts that have been snapped recently. Who is the next school that you would turn to say they can do this? They haven't done it in a long time. They need to break through. Where would you look to for the next team like that in the sport?
I mean, do we look at the other teams in purple now based on this track record? Like I was up there in the press box, who else wears purple in college football? We got TCU, we got Washington, Northwestern, I guess, if we're trusting that trend. I think a team that doesn't quite fit the mold of a TCU or a Washington, but I think is sort of floated around that like tier 2 range in college football the last few years. I think Ole Miss, if they were to be in the 12-team playoff this year, I don't know who wants to see them right now. And probably Missouri kind of gives you the same vibe. But the way that Ole Miss has just attacked the portal and gotten so much better up front with guys like Walter Nolan and Princely Umanmielen and Tyler Barron, like all 3 guys that have some skins on the wall in the SEC. They probably don't fit quite like the underdog mold that a Washington or a TCU do. But, I think Ole Miss is going to be one to watch because they no longer have that Goliath standing in their way of a Georgia and Alabama. They can probably get in the dance with a 10-2 record. Heck, maybe a 9-3 record in the SEC by nature of how those losses look. That could be good enough for an at-large bid. So I think they're fascinating. And then I think if you're looking elsewhere, I think Miami is going to be one to watch here with just how strong that young nucleus of talent is. And this is a major caveat, so I don't want to fill in too many blanks here and give us too many hypotheticals. But it sounds like if a waiver is granted, Taulia Tagovailoa will take a hard look at Miami. And if Taulia Tagovailoa goes to Miami and you plug him into that Shannon Dawson offense, and we see them kind of continue on what we saw in flashes this year, I'm thinking the A&M game, I'm thinking the North Carolina game, even though they lost. they got some dudes. They got some dudes, and I think that whole operation there in the ACC that feels pretty wide open next year. I think they're the other school that I'd watch here to make a run. Obviously, that major caveat being landing the guy at quarterback.
So as an LSU fan, I approach every single season and have for the last 25 years saying you basically have to go 11-1 or 12-0, and that 11-1's probably got to include beating Alabama. Like, that's the only way you can get where you want to go. I now think as I approach next August, 10-2 is the number you have to get get in the SEC. As someone who covers this thing nationally and is looking at everybody, like, what changes now that we enter the 12-team playoff era?
I think it probably comes down to what you value in the sport. Some of this is like, hey, I personally just love that last weekend in November, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, Florida, go down the list, LSU, Texas A&M. I love those games having as much of an impact as possible on teams and their potential to make the college football playoff. Now, not to say that it still won't, but we understand we won't get Ohio State, Michigan for a playoff spot. It'll more than likely be for seeding. So that's the one bummer. I think we look at the flip side of this and what's a major benefit. I think we will see a lot more really high-quality national title games. And that's not to say that this past season wasn't great, but I think you look at the TCU-Georgia game. In a 12-team model, somebody probably trips up TCU before they have to play Georgia and just get absolutely mollywopped, right? Like, they probably run into somebody. I mean, they lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 title game. And so all that's to say, I think the nature of how you'll have to build your roster is going to change a little bit. I think fighting multiple styles, being able to kind of, play in a shootout or play in a ground and pound kind of game is going to become more and more important because you're going to see different kinds of teams, from different conferences. Like, if we kept this same model and the Pac-12 still existed, like, you're going to have to go play a Big Ten team if you're an Oregon or, a USC if they were to be good enough to make it in that department. So I'm excited to see how that ends up changing and how that changes the way that we build rosters because it's going to be a lot of fun. Like, at the end of the day, this time of year in the college football playoff mold and this 12-team era is going to be jam-packed. So I'm excited for that. But, pros and cons to everything.
What do the next 7 months hold for you? Are there On 3?
It's a great question, man. I think for us, we'll obviously a little bit more into the recruiting side of things for us on our show, and that's just, the continual churn. There was a big verbal commitment that went down there in Baton Rouge, landing Bryce Underwood.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that, and then I think just the fun part about this part of the year, in my opinion, is you get to really take a step back and look at the whole beast that is college football. Hey, where are we when it comes to health of the sport? Hey, where are we when it comes to teams that, really need to make it happen this year? And we're not quite so close to the season where, obviously, and you can attest to this, like week to week, you're breaking down matchups and, the depth chart and things like that. So being able to kind of take a more 30,000-foot view of the entire thing that is college football is going to be a lot of fun.
We won't let 7 months pass before we chat with you again, but we appreciate you coming on every week, JD.
Hey, man, thank you for having me on throughout the duration of not just this season, but last season as well. It's obviously a huge honor for me and always one of the highlights of my week, man. So thank you for allowing me onto your show, and excited to talk again soon, man.
Yeah, we'll do it. Thanks, JD. He is JD PicKell, host of Hard Count on 3 Sports, with us every single Wednesday, just talking college football. Great dude, great shows. Check his stuff out on 3. You can subscribe to that channel. It's all college football all the time, and I know there's a sizable portion of you that just want to talk about college football all the time, and that's okay. We're just not going to do it all the time here. JD does do it. You can catch him on YouTube each and every day. Plenty to get to here on this Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. When we come back, it's What If Wednesday. Come back with us.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. Tell you about it every single day. And so maybe you're looking for a full-scale bathroom renovation or remodel, brand new customized closet, or maybe safety is something that's very, very important to you. You got an aging loved one. Maybe you're getting up in age and don't want to move, but may need some assistance in the bathroom. One Bath and Closets can help with that. They can put handrails, guardrails around the toilet and shower areas. They can put in non-stick floors. They can do a walk-in tub that's far more convenient and safer for those that are aging. They do that stuff all the time at One Bath and Closets. Go to the website, onebathandclosets.com. Check out pictures of their awesome work. See the testimonials from all their satisfied customers, and request that free consultation so David Duvall and his team can come in, give a look at what your situation is, what they can do for you. And I promise you this, they have financing options available if you think it's tough to cut that one check. Let them work with you at One Bath and Closets. That website, one more time, onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985.
Thursday on Off the Benches. They are on remote at the new Rouses at Florida Boulevard. Jake and T-Bob will be out there. We'll have our normal Munchie segment with Chef Michael Johnson. We'll continue with the latest of LSU football and the New Orleans Saints. Tune in 7 to 10 a.m. here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
And just saying, home is home. I don't know if that's a saying or not, but it's true. And there were reports a couple weeks ago, after Texas lost in the college football playoff semifinals, that all the suitors for Texas defensive line coach Bo Davis were going to come up empty and that he was going to remain in Austin. That may have been the case. But I do know that LSU did not stop trying to bring Bo Davis back to his alma mater here in Baton Rouge. And according to Wilson Alexander of The Advocate, that's going to happen. Wilson just reporting that Bo Davis is going to leave Texas, come to LSU to be the defensive line coach under coordinator Blake Baker and head coach Brian Kelly. This is big news. Bo Davis is as respected a defensive line coach as there is in college football. Spent some time on Nick Saban's staff at Miami, been at Texas, making $1 million a year as a position coach for the Longhorns, and LSU has lured him back to his alma mater. There's no information on the contract details, according to Wilson, just yet, but you would expect that it would be north of $1 million. And LSU, over the last 7 days, has spent a lot of money on its football program. A lot of money to buy out defensive coaches with time left on their contract. A lot of money to bring in a defensive coordinator for $2.5 million a year. And now, very likely, almost assuredly, a lot of money to bring a defensive line coach in. Bo Davis has a very, very difficult task on his hand immediately, kind of like Brad Davis did when he got here on the offensive line. But he's been a very, very good recruiter and a great developer of talent. May have 2 first-rounders on this Texas defensive front. And I'll kind of pair this story of Bo Davis coming to LSU with the departure of Maason Smith yesterday. He announced his intention to enter the NFL draft, joining Mekhi Wingo in that venture, and you realize that LSU's depth is non-existent on the interior defensive front. On the front as a whole, their numbers are basically unchanged. Mekhi Wingo's leaving, Maason Smith is leaving, Bryce Langston's in the transfer portal, Ty G. Hill transfer portal, Fitzgerald West transfer portal, Quincy Wiggins transfer portal. That's 6 defensive linemen from this roster out. And you're bringing in 6 at this point. Sean Washington, the JUCO transfer, Gabe Relaford, edge player from Evangel, C.J. Jackson, edge player from Tucker, Georgia, Demarion Johnson from New Iberia, who's a defensive tackle, Ahmad Bro from Ruston, and Dominic McKinley, who's committed, not yet signed, from Acadiana. So that's 6 coming in to replace the 6 leaving. The difference is the 6 leaving, Mekhi Wingo and Maason Smith are your starters and are third and fourth year players. And you're bringing in a bunch of freshmen outside of Sean Washington. Now, you still have Jordan Jefferson, Jacobian Guillory, Jalen Lee has announced he's coming back, Ovia Gofu, Braden Swinson, Deshaun Womack, Savion Jones, Paris Shand. On the ends and the edge, you've got some reasonable depth. You've got Ovia Gofu, Braden Swinson, Deshaun Womack, Savion Jones, Paris Shand. Like, those 5 guys played a lot, are old enough. Like, that's I wouldn't call that elite level LSU defense in terms of talent, but on the numbers, like, you're okay, especially when you consider, bringing in a couple of younger players like Dominic McKinley. It's the inside of the defensive front that is really, really thin. You've got Jordan Jefferson, Jacobian Guillory, who are reserves and have been at LSU. You've got Jalen Lee, who's been a reserve his entire college career. And then you've got Sean Washington and Demarion Johnson in this class. Essentially, Sean Washington's going to have to be a hit. Some junior college guys come in and pick it right up and are good. Some come in and you find out they can't cut it. That's going to have to be a hit. Because if he can't play, you're basically going into this season with Jordan Jefferson, Jacobian Guillory, and nothing behind him. And that's a terrifying place to be. Because having a serious weakness on the interior defensive front is a recipe to get destroyed in the SEC. At least if you got like shoddy safety play, your corners aren't awesome, that the offense still has to block up front, protect the passer, the quarterback's got to make the read, make the throw, the wide receiver's got to run the route and make the catch. Like, the offense still has to do a lot of things if you're not great in coverage. If you can't stop the run at all you got to do is turn around and hand it off and run forward, and you're toast. I mean, I'm oversimplifying the game of football here, but you get the picture. Having a very, very poor defensive front, you can't survive that. And right now, with the news that Mekhi Wingo and Maason Smith are moving on, LSU is deficient at defensive line. So my immediate thought, now that Brad Davis comes through the door, is anybody in burnt orange that wants to follow your position coach? Anybody at Texas that wants to come on over with you? Transfer portal opens up after spring. Like, we'll take you. Because this looks very daunting. If you brought Wingo and Smith back, both of them, all of a sudden it would look pretty healthy. And if you lost 6 guys, but it was the back end of your depth chart, it wouldn't be that big a deal. It's the fact that you've lost 6 guys and 2 of them were your veteran starters. So this is great news for LSU that Bo Davis, as respected a D-line coach as there is in the country, is 1, coming to your school, and 2, now leaving what will be a conference rival. It's weird to say, but it's true. That's very good news. The task he's got, like the task Brad Davis had, is daunting. And I would imagine there's a good chance that Bo Davis gets this thing turned around like Brad Davis did on the offensive front. It just takes some time. It doesn't take as long as it used to because you've got the transfer portal, but it will take a little bit of time. So as far as LSU is concerned, great hire, still a lot of work to be done. The other side of this coin is these guys leaving early. And this is happening less and less throughout college football. But it happened to LSU here. I told you last week that as far as Mekhi Wingo goes, I was okay with the decision. You've got great tape from 2 different years, freshman year at Missouri, sophomore year at LSU. You're not going to get bigger. Like he's an undersized defensive lineman. That is what he is. And he's going to be 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick this year or next year. That's just the way that is. So I thought that was an okay decision. That's the way I feel about this 95% of the time. I think, yeah, you're good to go. I can remember fighting with people when I did Hoops with Hunt about Naz Reid. He's not ready to go. Why is he going to leave? And no, he's 6'10". He can shoot a little bit, and he's 19 years old, and somebody's going to take him. And it's worked out okay for him. Felt the same way on that sport about Tremont Waters. He's going to be 5'10" this year. He's going to be 5'10" next year and the year after that. Might as well go give it a shot. I don't feel that way about Maason Smith. And the reasons are pretty obvious. He does have a massively high ceiling. Mekhi Wingo does not. But he does. And there's essentially no tape that paints Maason Smith in a dominant light. He was a reserve player as a freshman who played some mop-up time. He did not play as a sophomore. And last year, the production was minimal. You saw some flashes in the bowl game. And apparently he felt good enough about that to give this a shot. But what I said after the bowl game, and I'll stick to 2 weeks later, was if you can do that, what you did for 3 quarters in that bowl game, if you can do that for 4 months next year, you change your financial future greatly. Because now an NFL team would look at this and go, there's all this upside potential, and I've got the production to back it up. There's 2 sides to that. Now you're going to say, okay, this guy's huge, great frame, but I'm going to have to hope he can play because nothing on the tape is going to suggest that. And that difference could be negligible. It could be massive. The future will tell us. Maybe Maason Smith goes in the 4th round and makes the team and earns $95 million in the NFL. Maybe he's drafted in the 5th round and makes the practice squad. Maybe he's drafted in the 5th round and doesn't make it through camp. But I think the odds of Maason Smith being a top 60 pick in this draft, to me, at this point, are very, very slim. And once you start drifting later and later in the draft, there's less and less invested in you, and you're easier to dismiss. There's no guarantee that Maason Smith would come back and have a monster year and go 21st in the draft. That's not a guarantee. Just because you come back and have the opportunity to do it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But now I think you basically guaranteed that you're not going to be a super high draft pick. Everybody's situation is different in terms of where they are in their life, what the type of families around them, decision makers around them, financial situations. All those things are different person to person. And you never criticize someone for a decision that they make on behalf of their family. But I think looking at this, removed from anything that Maason Smith got going on in his life, because I don't know, I think from a purely football perspective, this one's tough to reason. Because there's just so little college production to go off of. This is purely upside. So it hurts LSU for sure. And LSU's got work to do in the transfer portal, I believe, because you can't just send that many freshmen out there to play defensive line. That's a recipe for disaster. And Bo Davis is going to be the guy to lead that charge. Sounds like LSU has pried the defensive line coach away from Texas back to his alma mater. Big news for Brian Kelly, Blake Baker, and LSU. Bo Davis headed to Baton Rouge. All right, that was our spot for What If Wednesday, but had some breaking news. We'll get to What If Wednesday next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $10,000 off MSRP on new 23 Jeep Grand Cherokee, $10,000 off new Jeep Grand Cherokee, and all new Bayou Automotive vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
My recurring nightmares.
Progressive is all about keeping it safe, so bundle your home and auto for 24/7 protection. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Coverage not provided for monster trucks. Not available in all states.
Stabs Prime Steak and Seafood? Stabs Prime Steak and Seafood. Well, I guess along with those sizzling steaks, we do have wood-fired oysters and scallops, beautiful sea bass, fresh Gulf fish and shrimp, and rich Ora King salmon. So yeah, Stabs Prime Steak and Seafood. Jefferson Highway across from Palermo Ristorante. Tell Leo that Kevin sent you. And don't forget, there ain't no cake in that crab cake. Come and see us.
Sandegriff, join us for the Thursday edition of Live at Lunch from Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar and Town Square Pizza. Dwayne Colucci will be with us from Las Vegas, Paul Nolan, and Matt Humans. Live at lunch, 11 a.m. Thursday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
So in the last segment, we told you Bo Davis joining LSU staff as the defensive line coach. They have pried him away from Texas. That was a report from Wilson Alexander of The Advocate. LSU has made it official. They've sent out the press release and the tweet. The state of football, Bo Davis coming back home. That is now official. All right, let's get to some What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question. What if?
All right, first one here. What if you have a tea time and it is going to be 28 degrees during that tea time?
Well, that was the conversation we just had, because that's the case with me on Saturday. Supposed to play golf in Shreveport. It's supposed to be 28 degrees when we're supposed to tee off. I think that's going to be under the threshold. I could go out there and tough it out. I'm not all that tough. I think you're about 10 degrees short. 38, I'm going to make it work. 28, we're just not going to get.
Well, yeah, and like we were saying earlier too, there's also different factors, like if it's going to be windy,
wet.
If it's wet, if it's going to be sunny, cloudy. But 28, I think even with sun and no wind, I think 28 is probably still going to be a little too much.
Going to be a no for me, dog.
What if you got offered a contract to go work in Japan?
So I was working the red carpet at Ronnie's event last night, which was fantastic, by the way. And Andrew Stevenson came by, and I was interviewing him briefly. And he said that he just signed a contract to go play baseball in Japan. And I was thinking about that, and like, I don't know what the terms of the contract are. And if you paid me $1 million to go work over in Japan, like, I'd make it work one way or another. But I'll tell you this, that culture over in Asia and the culture difference from where I live and the way they operate over there, the language barrier, all that goes into that, terrifies me. Like, I could probably make London or Scotland work where they're speaking English, and I got golf. Like, I can kind of make that work in terms of my life. Asia intimidates the crap out of me. Like, going to Malaysia or Japan or Hong Kong, or I would be terrified of all of that that goes into it. He seemed really excited about it, and just curious to see what he said. He'd never been to Japan. I'd be terrified.
What if you could relive any year of your life?
Interesting. I think that's got to be 2021. Got married, honeymooned. Myers was born, and I got launched Hunting Hill. Plus played some golf. Had a good golf trip that year too. So it's probably that one. 2019 was very good. Met my wife. The football season was phenomenal. So that was a good one.
Or what if you had to go like sub 20, like your age?
Maybe my junior year of high school, we were good in basketball and baseball that year. We got to the playoffs in basketball, which was unheard of. We won a playoff game, and that was like, I thought I was in the NBA. When we played Lakeview, we showed up and like the gym was packed, and we were like, I felt like I was in the NBA for that game. There were probably like 250 people at the gym. And then baseball, we got to the quarters and got beat by Daniel Bradshaw, but that was really fun. So those two like runs, that's I mean, I was never gonna play college sports, so like all my life of practicing and going to games and all that was it all built up to kind of that. Junior year of high school was very good. I would consider that.
All right, this one's from Twitter. What if KJ Williams had another year of eligibility for this season?
That'd be a big help. You put Jalen Cook, Jordan Wright, and KJ Williams out there. I think that's a good, formidable middle of the pack SEC Big Three. You're still not going to be Tennessee or Kentucky with that crew, but you could
maybe win 8 or 9 games in the SEC.
Yeah, I thought Will Baker was going to be a pretty seamless replacement there for KJ, and it looked like that early on, but he's just kind of regressed a little bit, and maybe there's more in that tank. We'll see. But yeah, that would have if KJ would have come back for another year, if he had another year, I don't even remember. That would have been you'd have been pretty salty.
All right, this is also from Twitter. What if LSU loses another home season opener against USC? would it be the most consecutive season opening losses?
I don't know that this isn't the most. They've lost 4 in a row. Like, have they ever done that? And, I mean, you play a lot of cupcakes throughout history in your first game of the season. I would imagine.
Maybe like going back to, maybe the 70s or 80s, whenever they used to always the Oklahoma, even the opening games. Yeah, those used to be tough sometimes.
But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine LSU's lost 5 consecutive season openers in a long, long time, and that would just be heartbreaking. We will talk about that all August, but it's just such a difficult spot to put yourself in to lose that first game. It's better with a 12-team playoff than a 4-team playoff, but I mean, you look at what Michigan's schedule looked like this year and what Georgia's schedule looked like this year, and you're not really incentivized to play great teams. So it would suck if they lose the opener next year, and they got work to do on the defensive side of the ball. That's for sure. Bo Davis is going to help with that, apparently, as LSU has announced, as he is going to be their new defensive line coach. We talked about that in this hour. If you missed it, you can catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, and you can catch it on YouTube, Hunt on LSU. Lots to get to in hour number 2 as well. I'm going to talk a little baseball, got some NFL draft stuff to talk about as well. So we'll pause for SportsCenter, come back with us, hour number 2 of the Hunt Palmer Show, coming right up.
Hey, look what I found! The motivation I needed to live healthy. My new favorite sport.
I found my groove.
I found I'm part fish.
My second win when I needed it most.
I found more than a gym.
The affordable childcare this mom needed.
Time for myself.
We found our why.
Have you found yours?
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $10,000 off MSRP on new 23 Jeep Grand Cherokee, $10,000 off new Jeep Grand Cherokee, and all new Bayou Automotive vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Breaking NFL news, a shocker in Seattle. After 14 years and the only Super Bowl title in franchise history, Pete Carroll is out as Seahawks coach, expected to remain with the franchise in an advisory role. Seattle is the 7th NFL head coaching vacancy currently. The Bears are not making a head coaching change. Matt Eberflus will return for the 2024 season. Team did fire offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. What does Eberflus's return mean for the future of Chicago quarterback Justin Fields? ESPN Bears reporter Courtney Cronin.
To me, this likely signals that they're going to use that number 1 pick on a quarterback unless something drastic changes and they feel that they have somebody coming in who is dead set on working with Justin Fields. You wouldn't be wanting to hitch your wagon to a head coach that might be out of a job after 2024 and a quarterback that, also may be on the move.
Courtney Cronin on Greeny. NBA, the Clippers signed franchise star Kawhi Leonard to a 3-year, $153 million extension. The team does continue extension talks with fellow star Paul George. NHL, Blackhawks rookie superstar Connor Bedard out 6 to 8 weeks after surgery on a broken jaw.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy, coming up Thursday. I'll tell you why this will be the Cowboys' last best chance to get to the Super Bowl. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2. Hunt Palmer Show coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. Half the work week in the rearview mirror. Thanks for hanging out with us here, getting through your day. Got Jacob Beck and Casey Gaines back there on the 1s and 2s. Little baseball coming at you in 15 minutes. I got in the mood last night, being at the event that Ronnie Rance put on to benefit the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Jerry Lane put it on. It was called Night of Champions, and it was a lot of fun to be there last night. So we'll talk a little bit of baseball because Koki Riley, the new beat writer over at The Advocate covering LSU baseball, sat down with Jay Johnson, and they discussed a few things that I'd like to talk about. But we'll stick with football here at the top of the hour. I think a lot of you that listen to this show with any sort of regularity know that I'm a stats guy. I like to dig things up, look at statistics, trends, numbers. I think that it's a fascinating thing to do to see what the story is told. And I spend a lot of time doing that before the show, quite frankly. I enjoy it, and I think it's more often than not interesting. I also very much approve of LSU doing all that work for me and then issuing a press release so that I can just use the work that they've done for the show. And that's the case today. We got a press release from LSU earlier today just laying out the accomplishments of the 2023 LSU offense and just how spectacular they were. And so hat tip to Michael Bonnet and Todd Politz and the whole crew over there at Sports Information for putting this all together so I don't have to go dig it all up. I am going to use it, but credit where it is due. They did all of this research. I'm just here to relay it to you and kind of give some color to it. It was really, really impressive. LSU ranked first among all FBS teams in points per game at 45.5. They were number 1 in the nation in total offense as well, 543.5 yards per game. Those numbers are second most in the history of the school to the 2019 team. And I'll be honest, if you asked me how many points per game LSU averaged in 2019 3 hours ago before I read this press release, I would have said, probably like 40, 42. And I would have lowballed him by a touchdown there. LSU averaged 48.4 points and 568 yards per game in 2019. Just absurd. I know. I watched the Oklahoma game. I know how that looked. I know how great they were. I don't know that I would have said they averaged 48.4 points per game, but this team second in school history at 45.5. LSU's total offense third in the history of the Southeastern Conference. Obviously 2019 LSU. Jacob Beck, I will ask you, just name the quarterback on the other team that was in the top 3 all-time in total offense in the Southeastern Conference. LSU 2019 team leads it. Who's second in front of this team?
I will say Cam Newton.
That is incorrect. It was in that era, close to where we are. Got another quarterback you want to toss out there?
Tim Tebow?
Johnny Manziel.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And that A&M offense averaged 558 yards per game. I don't know that I would have gotten that right either. But LSU number 3 in SEC history in terms of total offense. Prior to 2019, LSU had never led the nation in scoring offense or total offense, and LSU's done it twice in 5 years. It's been a pretty remarkable little run that LSU has gone on with those two quarterbacks and those two offenses. LSU topped 40 points 9 times this year. It had 9 games where they went over 500 yards of total offense, the highest coming in that win over Florida, where LSU rolled up 701 total yards in what was one of the greatest performances in the history of Tiger Stadium. When I think about Jayden Daniels, I'll think about that Florida game. And, you know, the passing is awesome, and he threw a deep ball to Brian Thomas down into the student section, and he did a great job of throwing the ball that night, but it was just the runs, the 75-yarder, the 50-plus yarder where he's weaving through the defense, looks like he's gliding, and the Florida defense is like stuck in the mud. And I'll put that performance up there with Leonard Fournette against Auburn, where guys are flipping over the top of him, and in some of the greatest performances we've ever seen inside Tiger Stadium. Leonard Fournette against Ole Miss when he ran for 1 billion yards. It's a game that is burned into my brain as just one of the great performances ever in that stadium. He led the nation in a ton of categories. Total offense at 412 yards per game, pass efficiency, points responsible for per game, yards per rush. He led the country in yards per rush at 8.4. And then obviously rushing yards by quarterback, he led the country there with over 1,100. His pass efficiency rating, and this is something that I think does matter when teams are going to evaluate Jayden Daniels in the draft, was 208. Now, I could not tell you how they calculate that. I don't know one element that goes into pass efficiency rating, and I'm guessing most of you don't either. But to do it at the highest clip in the history of the FBS, pretty good. This guy is an elite level athlete. Jayden Daniels can run. He's quick. He makes great decisions. Didn't turn the ball over. He didn't turn the ball over back at Arizona State when he wasn't the Heisman Trophy winner. But to have the highest passer rating in the history of the FBS is something. Now, Grayson McCall had it previously, so I don't know how much to read into it, because I don't think of Grayson McCall when I think of all-time greats in the history of the sport. But to do something better than anybody's ever done it in the FBS, I think is amazing. Jayden Daniels accounted for 412 yards per game. That broke Joe Burrow's school record of 402. Got that by 10 yards during that 2019 season. And Jayden Daniels capped his career, LSU writes, as the only player in FBS history to pass for 12,000 yards and rush for 3,000 yards. He played 53 games and went for 12,749 passing yards and 3,300 rushing yards. Again, only player in the history of the sport to do that. Get helped out with the COVID year. We get that, and I'll toss that caveat in there. But still, just a remarkable run for Jayden Daniels. He was second nationally in passing touchdowns with 40. He was third nationally in passing yards per game at 317, fourth in passing yards per completion, and fifth in total passing yards. So basically any passing category statistic you're looking at, he was in the top 5 in the country. And that's the most important thing when you start evaluating him for the NFL draft, because while it looks awesome to run and glide through Florida for the tune of 260 yards or whatever it was, that's a little tougher to do against the Ravens. So you've got to win throwing the ball at the quarterback spot. The wheels help, and the best quarterbacks in the NFL do make a lot of plays outside the pocket and with their feet. Mahomes certainly does that. Doesn't have the high-end speed, but he's mobile and a good athlete. Josh Allen does that. Lamar Jackson's going to win the MVP. He certainly does that. Justin Herbert's a good athlete. Joe's a pretty good athlete, and he can run and get those 7 or 8 yards when you need it. But all those guys, when they're at their best and those teams that are winning games, they're winning throwing the ball. And Jayden Daniels is far from an athlete that LSU stuck back there at quarterback. Passing the football this year, he was absolutely fantastic. And then you go to the wide receivers, Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas led the country in receiving touchdowns, finishing with 17. No one was able to pass him. And Malik Nabers, number 1 in the country in receiving yards per game at 120. Number 2 in receiving yards at 1,569. Malik Nabers, as they allude to here and that you're well aware because of the bowl game, all-time leader in receptions at LSU and receiving yards at LSU. You know, for a long time, 6 years, and then a little bit more, we referenced that 2013 LSU offense with Mettenberger going for 3,000 yards and Jarvis and Odell both going over 1,000 yards and Jeremy Hill rushing for 1,000 yards. And that had never been done in the history of the FCC, and that was kind of the gold standard for LSU offense in this era. Rohan had a great year. That Sugar Bowl team that beat Illinois, they were throwing the ball all over the place, and Josh Reed won the Biletnikoff, and that was phenomenal. Matt Malk set some passing records on the 03 team. Flynn had a great year in 07, winning the national championship. Now that team almost seems pedestrian because of the 2 Heisman Trophy winners that we've seen in the last 5 years here in Baton Rouge. And I thought I had accepted that I was not going to see anything like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Terrace Marshall and Thad Moss and Clyde. I was not going to see anything like that maybe for the rest of my life. I know that Oklahoma had back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners that were different, and Jalen Hurts was a finalist the next year. Like, I know that it's literally possible. It's not like, I don't think Marshall's going to see a Randy Moss anytime soon. Like that takes extenuating circumstances and probably not going to happen. At LSU, you can have the next great player immediately come right in. But I had kind of resigned myself to, hey, you're in your early 30s, that may be the best you ever see. And I think it was. But this was damn close offensively. When you talk about taking the football, driving down the field, getting points, this was close to that. And unfortunately, the other side of the ball couldn't handle its business, and it cost LSU a chance to play for the significant things the 2019 team was able to play for. But this was unbelievable to watch. And so now I guess maybe my perspective changes, and instead of thinking, maybe you'll never see that again, I'm thinking, all right, well, when can we recreate that? How great can it be again, and how quickly? Seems like the offense is in pretty good shape right now, just about across the board. So be hopeful. Don't demand it. We can be hopeful that we'll see another phenomenal season like that one coming in the near future. But again, big shout out to Michael Bonnet, Todd Politz, and the whole crew at Sports Information for putting all that together to allow me to just kind of coast through it on their hard work. I do want to give them credit for it, but I just thought it was great stuff and wanted to pass it along to you, the listener. So awesome stuff from LSU offensively this year. Now we transition to the diamond. Josh Pearson going to second base. Jake Brown was a pitcher. Now is he a hitter? Is he a two-way guy? What's the plan at catcher? There's a lot of questions that Koki Riley from The Advocate asked Jay Johnson. I'll give you some of those answers and direct you to read his piece as well. When we come back, talk a little baseball on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Did you lose power early this week when those storms blew through? If you did, it's a nuisance. You could knock out the electricity. Maybe you've got an alarm that's plugged into the wall and it doesn't work. It's just a bad situation. Protect yourself from power outages, whether it's ice storms, hurricanes, summer storms that blow through. We lose power around here a lot. Boudreaux's Electric can help you. Neil and Melissa Boudreaux have operated Boudreaux's Electric for 40 years, and they still run like that small family business, but they've got a ton of technology they can offer you. They can monitor your generator 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So even if you're not using the generator, power's working fine, no weather in the area, but something happens to your generator and it malfunctions, they'll know about it because they monitor them, and they'll have a technician sent out there, even if you don't know it's broken. Maybe it's an equipment malfunction. Maybe you got kids out there playing in the yard and somebody kicks a soccer ball off of it and messes it up. Boudreaux's Electric will know because they monitor it. And every single Generac generator that they sell, 10-year free warranty. 10-year free warranty over at Boudreaux's Electric. Give them a call. Gonzales location coming very, very soon, but the phone line's already up and running. So if you call 225-300-9389, 225-300-9389, you'll get them at Boudreaux's Electric.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
The importance of doing this Fortified program and offering it to people down here is #1, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance shops, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the Fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a Fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. I think we're rocking and rolling.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Weekend for wall-to-wall football as we have all 6 playoff games. We start off Saturday afternoon with Browns-Texans, then all day Sunday before wrapping things up Monday night with Eagles-Buccaneers. Catch all of those games right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I've mentioned this a couple times during the show and mentioned it yesterday. But last night, Ronnie Rance had a big fundraiser for Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Excuse me, it was presented by Jerry Lane, called a Night of Champions. It was really, really, really well done. I got throat issues here we got to deal with. Thank God for the cough button. But it was really, really well done. I had Skip Bertman, Paul Maneri, Jay Johnson, Mike Bianco, Ben McDonald, Roger Clemens, Dylan Cruz, Ryan Terrio, Will Harris, Todd Walker. It was fantastic. Kevin Gaussman was there. Gavin Dugas was there. Andrew Stevenson was there. Kramer Robertson was there. Mikey Matuk stopped by. Just a who's who of LSU baseball, and then obviously guys like Roger Clemens that were there, and it kind of got me in the mood for a little baseball. And Koki Riley has taken over as the new LSU baseball beat writer for The Advocate, and he had a sit down with Jay Johnson that he published yesterday, and I thought, hey, I can chat a little bit about that and some of the news that he uncovered chatting with Coach Johnson as they start practice coming up on Monday. Full disclosure, Alex Milazzo and Hayden Travinski have a new podcast called In the Dirt, and I wanted them to come on Monday and spend an hour with me and just kind of talk about that and the team and kind of being the leaders on the group. And didn't realize that practice started on Monday. They're like, yeah, we're catching pins on Friday, so we can't come, and we start practice on Monday. I was like, well, guess that opportunity's out the door. So I tried to get those guys on to talk about it, but we'll just kind of discuss some of the things that Jay talked about with Koki. And it starts with the weekend rotation that Jay feels like is at least etched in sand at this point. That's Thatcher Hurd, Luke Holman, and Gage Jump. And I can't really recall the last time I felt like I had a really good handle on who the 3 starting pitchers were going to be on opening weekend in the first week of January. Like, I don't really recall that being the case. You had Lang and Poche there for a while, but I didn't know Eric Walker was the dude in early January. It turns out that Pulmonary found that pretty quickly, but I just that's a little different, and it's really exciting because I think Thatcher Hurd is primed for an awesome year. I think Luke Holman, if he can make one little incremental jump to go from mid-level Friday night guy in the SEC to just a tick better than that, and you can put him out there on Saturdays potentially, like that's an exciting deal. And Gage Jump is a huge talent. He hasn't pitched in a while because he's been banged up, but he's left-handed and was the number 1 pitching prospect, left-handed pitching prospect in the California high school ranks when he went to UCLA. Like, that's really, really exciting. I mean, there are some other guys that could have a say in this, and Griffin Herring is one of them, Nate Ackenhausen is one of them, but they kind of feel like bullpen arms. And then the one guy that everybody wants to talk about is Cam Johnson. Well, he's got to break in. He's perfect game, named him number 1 freshman in college baseball. And they did. They did that this week. It sounds like, based on Koki's sit down with Jay Johnson, that Cam Johnson is likely to be a high leverage bullpen piece early in the season. And I know everybody, when you talk about Cam Johnson, was 99-mile-an-hour fastball, and I think he can throw a 99-mile-an-hour fastball. Most of the time when I saw him pitch in the fall, it was closer to 95, 96, which is, trust me, that's plenty. But it's not like he's some, like, absolute, he's not Aroldis Chapman coming in. He's an uber-talented dude, but he's got a really high-level fastball, and he can kind of unleash that if they use him late in games. I think Gavin Guidry is also going to be pretty high-leverage pitcher for this team in the back end of the bullpen. You can put him with Justin Lohr, Christian Little, Aiden Moffitt, DJ Primo, Micah Bucknam. I mean, it's a pretty deep crew. The one arm that is potentially not going to be used very often in the bullpen is that of Jake Brown. And when they signed him, I was under the impression Jake Brown would be a pitcher at LSU. Like, I hadn't done a ton of digging into it, and obviously a lot of guys hit in high school and then pitch. Ryan Eads was a really good hitter in high school and came here and never hit. But it sounds like he impressed them so much in the fall that Jake Brown is going to be potentially a starting outfielder and a full-time bat. They may potentially use him a little bit as a pitcher, but his main role is going to be as an offensive player and an outfielder. And like, this is the complete inverse of Gavin Guidry last year, who I kind of thought would be the next shortstop at LSU. And all of a sudden I look up at the game in Columbia, South Carolina, and he's nailing down a save. Gets the last out in the College World Series. Oh, he's a shortstop. He's a pitcher now. This is a flip with Jake Brown, who appears to have turned enough heads in the outfield. Paxton Kling and Mac Bingham are going to be starters in the outfield for LSU. There's little doubt about that. Bingham has been a 3-year starter at Arizona, played for Jay Johnson and started early in his career there at Arizona. And Paxton Kling needs to be a huge piece to this team and what they want to do offensively. Those two guys are likely going to start, but maybe Jake Brown as a left-handed bat, because LSU's short on left-handed bats as well. Start to look around the diamond, and if Brady Neal's not catching or playing on the infield, Stravinsky's right-handed, Milazzo's right-handed, Jared Jones is right-handed. Michael Braswell's right-handed. Tommy White's right-handed. Paxton Kling's right-handed. Ethan Fry's right-handed. Mac Bingham's right-handed. You got a lot of righty bats. You got Pearson from the left side, then maybe Brown adds another one there. And Neal is going to hit as well. But you need some left-handed bats. The odd man out in this situation that we're talking about is Ethan Fry, who also had a very, very good fall. So I'm curious to see kind of where he slots in. They've got 3 weeks of practice, maybe 4 weeks of practice to get out there and figure it out. But that's interesting. Brady Neal is going to catch, but not every game. You got Milazzo and Travinsky that are going to be in there a lot, and he's also worked at second base. He's worked at third base. He's worked some of the corner outfield spots. They got to keep his back healthy, and it's been angry at him now for a better part of a year. And so they're going to try to lessen the workload on that back, specifically catching. I don't think he's going to catch a ton of bullpens. Certainly not an everyday type deal. He's going to catch some games. That'll get another left-handed bat there in the lineup and a talented defensive catcher as well. But he's going to move around the diamond as well. Tommy White was something that Koki Riley and Jay Johnson touched on in the piece of The Advocate. I invite you to go read that. You can read the whole sit-down Q&A and the discussion that they had over at theadvocate.com. But Tommy White's apparently on a good pace to recover. He should be 100% by opening day. He's hitting. He's throwing every single day. He didn't play in the SEC tournament. He did not take any infield in Omaha when I was there. He was banged up late last year, but he went out there and gutted it out and played third base and hit the biggest home run of the season for LSU to walk off Wake Forest. Good for him to go under the knife, get that shoulder taken care of, and get out there and play. That image of Tommy White walking off the field in the first inning of the first game last year with his arm dangling down by his side is burned into my brain. I was sitting in my seat, so excited. I actually left this show. Remember they moved opening day up last year because of the rain and the cold weather that was coming in. So I think they started at 3. So I left at 2 from this show to get to the box at 3 o'clock for the opener. And I'm sitting in my seat, and Tommy White gets a hit, an RBI single on his first at bat at LSU. They throw a pick off, and he dives back into the bag and doesn't get up. And the trainer goes out there, and he walks off, and I think he's out for the year. I mean, that was just gutting to watch, but it seems like he's healthy, going to be out there and ready to roll. The pitching injuries are where I'm going to temper my expectations. I know what Jay's saying. And they know a lot more than I do. But in terms of just me personally, I'm tempering my expectations for Jayden Newt and Chase Shores. According to the story, they expect to have Jayden Newt back potentially early April, which will give you April and May, 2 months, to see what you can get out of Jayden Newt. For those that don't know who Jayden Newt is, big-time right-handed pitcher, signed in the class last year, showed up at LSU with an injury and wasn't able to pitch. He's had surgery. He's on the recovery. I'm scarred by the Jake Latz thing, the Javen Coleman thing, like expecting guys to come off of major surgery and just insert themselves in 13 months after and just be the high-profile recruit that you thought you had is ambitious. And the good news for LSU is they've got such a deep and talented pitching staff that you don't have to have Jayden Newt and Chase Shores come back and help you. Jay Johnson says potentially Newt by early April, Shores maybe later in the season. Here's how Hunt Palmer personally is going to approach that. If either one of those guys grabs a baseball and gives you any innings, gravy. I'm planning on going into this season and playing it through without those two guys. Again, that's not Jay Johnson talking. That's not Nate Yeske talking. I'm not telling you how you should approach it. I'm just telling you, me personally, I'm not expecting those two guys to show up humming 98-mile-an-hour fastballs and getting huge clutch outs in the regional. If that happens, I'll be fired up. I'm not going to expect that from those two guys. So that's kind of the big nuts and bolts from the story, but you can read all the details from Koki Riley's story. You can follow him on Twitter, incidentally, at Koki, K-O-K-I, Riley, R-I-L-E-Y, the new beat writer at The Advocate. Had done some work for The Advertiser, now is over at The Advocate, and he'll be covering the baseball team. And we're going to chat with Koki throughout the season. Tried to get him on today, but he was a little bit busy, so I decided to go ahead and give the nuts and bolts of his story. But go check his stuff out over on The Advocate. We'll take a timeout, come back with more. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com. Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
It was a humid day. Barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
His name was Cain. He had a horse along the countryside. I saw him ride. One day they found him.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, party plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com. Oh, by the way, we do shutters too.
Maason inviting you to join us for Wednesday's Hump Day AFR, presented by Pluckers. First, Mekhi Wingo. Now, Maason Smith declares for the draft. How does LSU rebuild its defensive line? We'll discuss 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Listen to all 6 NFL playoff games from Wild Card Weekend starting this Saturday afternoon at 3:30. That will be the Browns taking on the Texans. Following that, the Dolphins will be traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Continuing Sunday at noon and wrapping up Monday night at 7:15. Go to 1045ESPN.com for a full schedule. Your home for the 2024 NFL playoffs and Super Bowl 58 is 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
We don't do a lot of Chicago Bears talk on this show for good reason. They're not very good, and I don't think anybody on here cares. But I get a lot of Chicago Bears in my life because of all the Chicago people I follow on Twitter and pay attention to podcast-wise because of the Cubs. And so when today the Chicago Bears announced they were firing offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, but keeping head coach Matt Eberflus, people in Chicago had an absolute meltdown. They are just distraught at the fact that the organization is keeping Matt Eberflus around as they enter this massive offseason for them with a ton of cap room and the number one pick in the draft and all of that. And none of that has anything to do with LSU or anything in South Louisiana other than the fact that we're going to have our eyes on the top of the NFL draft for Jayden Daniels. You figure that Jayden Daniels is going to come off the board pretty quick on draft night. There's Caleb Williams, there's Drake May, there's Jayden Daniels, whatever order you decide you want to put them in. It feels like those three guys will be gone rather quickly. I think Nix and Penix and some of the other guys that come later, maybe middle of the first round, later in the first round, but doesn't it feel like Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jayden Daniels will all be top 7 picks? And somebody's going to go first. And the feeling is that that first pick is now going to be by the Chicago Bears. Because with keeping Eberflus, it seems like they're going to move away from Justin Fields. And I say that because if they bring Justin Fields back, he will be working with his third offensive coordinator in 4 years. And that just doesn't seem like the direction that you'd want to go. Seems like they're going to bring in a new quarterback and a new coordinator and have them push off the dock together under Matt Eberflus. That's the feeling from Chicago, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So they'll trade Justin Fields, see what they can get for him. Some say third rounder, some say fourth rounder, whatever. Cowboys gave up a little for a basically non-used Trey Lance. Fields has at least played a little bit. So I think the Bears will be at the top of the draft. I continue to think that it's possible that Jayden Daniels could go with the number one pick in the draft. I wouldn't go as far as to say likely. I wouldn't go as far as to say probable. I would say possible that someone takes these next 4 months and determines that Jayden Daniels is the guy that they want to hitch their wagon to. But if the Bears were going to trade that pick, you wouldn't know who was going to come into it. Now we think they're going to keep it. So the first quarterback off the draft, which Caleb Williams probably. But then you've got Washington and New England both sitting there in need of a quarterback. You've got Arizona, who probably going to stick around with Kyler Murray. You got the Chargers, who are set. You've got the Giants, who are going to add a quarterback in some way, shape, or form. But again, you've got that albatross of Daniel Jones that you paid. Tennessee's set at quarterback, and then the Falcons at 8 need a quarterback before the Bears come back around at 9. So, sure, anybody could trade into these spots and take Jayden Daniels. But at this point, I think there's reason to believe that Jayden Daniels could go with one of the first 3 picks in the draft to Chicago, Washington, or New England. It would surprise me personally if any of those teams traded out of those spots. I think the Bears are going to be in the QB market, and we know Washington and New England have to be. So doesn't it feel like Jayden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams are going to be there one way or another? And none of those teams are in the NFC South, so that's a positive. None of them are in the division with my beloved Bengals, who I didn't watch a second of after Joe got hurt. And, the Bears are a pretty unstable organization with a lot of history. The Commanders now finally have new ownership and should be far more functional than they were under the Dan Snyder era. And the Patriots are a great organization. Robert Kraft is a great owner. Now, they're having some trouble moving on from Tom Brady, but that's the point of this draft pick. And I don't think that Bill Belichick's going to be back. They got Mac Jones's fifth-year option sitting there. I can't imagine they would pick that up. It would seem like a very foolish thing to do. I think we've seen enough of Mac Jones to know that's not the answer. So I think they're all pretty good landing spots for Jayden Daniels. The Bears have whiffed on quarterbacks. They tried with Fields and it's not worked. They tried with Trubisky, hasn't worked. Brought Andy Dalton in. I mean, Cutler is about as good as they've had. They made the Super Bowl with Grossman. So in that spot, yeah, the organization's been a little bit dysfunctional, but at least if you show up and save the day, you're the best quarterback they've probably ever had. Washington feels like it's in a better spot moving forward because of ownership, and the New England, I think, is a great spot to land. Not what it was 12 years ago, 6 years ago, but I still think it's a quality organization that's run the right way. And it feels like those are the three options. Correct me if I'm wrong in the Bayou Ford chat. Beck, maybe you think that that one of those teams might trade out, but I think all three of those teams are taking a quarterback.
I would be shocked if they didn't. I mean, it seems like
you can get the Bears could get a king's ransom
definitely.
for the number one pick. They sent it to Carolina last year, but it seems to me that
Justin Fields' time is done.
Yeah, it's not good. I saw a blog post from one of my Cubs guys. It was like, I mean, we're celebrating this one game, but if you go back over the last 6, like, we're talking about a guy who usually throws for like 170 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Like, it's in this era of the NFL, like, that sucks. And so, I think that while maybe in October and early November we thought Jayden maybe in the 20s, all of a sudden you start to see the Florida game shows up and the A&M game shows up, and guys start to evaluate more film as we get ready to get into draft season post Super Bowl. And it feels like I think he's going in the top 3. I don't think that there's any chance Penix or Nix goes in front of him. And I think there's still a chance that he'd be the number one pick. I've got a buddy who's got not a sizable bet, but a really good odds bet on Jayden being the number 1 overall pick. I still think Caleb Williams is probably the guy, but I'm not ruling out Jayden at the top. And if he does, I think it would land him in Chicago. Hey, I could go up for a Cubs late season game,
doubleheader,
and then check out Jayden playing quarterback for the Bears at Soldier Field. I've never been to Soldier Field.
I have to join you for that.
If I ever go to Soldier Field, it's going to be in September. It is not going to be in December.
No.
There's no chance. Did you see the forecast for the Chiefs game this week?
Yeah, it's not good.
1 degree?
1 degree.
That's not enough degrees. Not nearly enough degrees to play an NFL football playoff game. So that's where the things sit at the top of the NFL draft and how they may affect Jayden Daniels. The big news of the day, if you're just jumping in the car and haven't seen, Bo Davis is coming to LSU to be the defensive line coach, leaving where he was in Austin, Texas. The details of the contract being released. It's 3 years at just a little over $4 million total. So you're looking at like an average there of about 1.33 per year is an escalating deal. So Bo Davis is going to be a very, very handsomely paid defensive line coach, as we imagined. And continuously over the last 2 weeks, LSU has found a lot of money. They had a lot of money laying around to buy out the defensive staff, a lot of money to bring in a Blake Baker at $2.5 million, a lot of money to bring Bo Davis in at north of $1 million a year to be a defensive line coach. And I doubt that the recruits that they were able to pull in were free. That seems unlikely this day and age. So we always talk about LSU trying to keep up in this arms race against A&M and Texas and Alabama and Georgia and Michigan and USC and all that. Well, they just outbid Texas for Bo Davis. So maybe sometimes they find some money in some couch cushions somewhere. Just gotta keep finding it. I don't know where it comes from, but they've got to keep on finding it. Bo Davis, big add to LSU's defensive staff. If you want to hear more of my reaction to that, we got to it at the bottom of hour number 1. You can find that on demand or at our LSU channel on YouTube, Hunt on LSU. All right, we'll take one more time out, come back and close it out. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet. The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
His name was King. He had a horse along the countryside. I saw him ride. One day they found him.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electricity.
Thursday on Off the Benches. They are on remote at the new Rouse's at Florida Boulevard. Jake and T-Bob will be out there. We'll have our normal Munchie segment with Chef Michael Johnson. We'll continue with the latest of LSU football and the New Orleans Saints. Tune in 7 to 10 a.m. here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, closing up shop here. Tomorrow, if you just heard Taylor talking about Off the Bench being at Rouse's on Florida Boulevard tomorrow, that is correct. The Hunt Palmer Show will also be at Rouse's on Florida Boulevard. And if you're thinking to yourself, I didn't know there was a Rouse's on Florida Boulevard. Well, right now, there's not. But the grand opening tomorrow, Rouse's, Florida Boulevard. And 3 of our 4 shows will be on location from that Rouse's. OTB, my show, and Matt Moscone's AFR will all be Rouse's, Florida Boulevard. So come on out and see. It's just a nice coincidence that my Thursday shows are brought to you by Rouse's and will be at Rouse's. So that'll be pretty easy to get into the live reads. Excited to get out there and see the new location and broadcast our show tomorrow. So come on out if you're doing some grocery shopping or you just want to come hang out and talk some sports. We'll be doing it at Rouse's on Florida tomorrow. All right, back. Take it or leave it.
All right, first one here is pretty simple. Straight up, king cake. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I love king cake. I love the flavor infused king cakes with the filling in it. I think some people are averse to that. No, you got to do the classic traditional. Now I'll take some strawberry filling in mine. That's great. I'm all about it. I'm all about cream cheese. You want to put some vanilla or cinnamon or whatever the heck you want to do. I'm all about it. And I'm not even like that discriminatory about where I get them from. Some people gotta have it from this place. It's the only place now. I'll take it from just about whatever. Like, I'll tell you this. When I worked in insurance, I worked in New Orleans. And the amount of king cakes that showed up in that office
probably
from January through Mardi Gras is insane. Like, there's 6 in the kitchen at one time. Clients are bringing them, people are bringing them, and I'll tell you what, they were real serious about the babies. If they found a baby sitting on the counter and you had not purchased a new king cake, like, they were called orphans, and it was a big deal. Like, if there was an orphan and somebody typed in, you got the whole company got an email about this disaster that's happened where there was not a king cake brought by and there was an orphan on this counter. So, yeah, I love king cakes. I'm all about it.
According to Brett McMurphy, there is no chance the NCAA would issue a waiver and allow a proposed irrelevant bowl in 2024 that would match college football's 2 worst teams. An irrelevant bowl, take it or leave it.
I mean, aren't all the bowls irrelevant bowls this time?
Yeah, good one.
No, I looked that up when I saw Brett McMurphy tweet that. It would have been, I think, Kent State and ULM this year would have been locking up. And I'll tell you one thing about me is that I'm not watching Kent State and ULM play football really ever. So I think there are some sickos that would want to be involved in something like that.
Of course, absolutely.
I'm going to pass on the irrelevant bowl, but it's a hilarious concept. And I think there might be some opt-outs on that one.
The Chicago Cubs have reportedly signed coveted Japanese pitcher Shota Imanaga to a 4-year deal. Imanaga will start 25-plus games and 140 innings pitched next season. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. He doesn't have a track record of injuries. Some Cubs fans are a little lukewarm on this, thinking that the funds should be a little bit diverted everywhere. Look, he led the Japanese league in strikeouts last year. Was good in the World Baseball Classic. 94-mile-an-hour fastball, good breaking ball. The Cubs rotation, while it's not really heavy at the top, it's deep. They probably got 8 guys in the organization that you could confidently put out there and say, hey, I need 5 innings today against the Giants that could do it. So they were literally the last team in Major League Baseball to acquire a big leaguer this year. Literally the last one. They signed a couple of minor league deals. That is frustrating. They still have a lot of work to do offensively. I need Cody Bellinger back tomorrow. But yeah, I'm good with adding a new arm. It seems positive. So I don't know if I'm going to get an Imanaga jersey, but I'm in on the signing.
All right, last one here. The Denver Broncos are reportedly open to Russell Wilson returning to the team in 2024. You believe this? Take it or leave it.
I believe that. They benched this man for Jarrett Stidham at the end of the year, and he was healthy. Like, that's the end. That's the end of the line. It's the end of the road. I don't know what Russell Wilson's future is. It's kind of an interesting deal. He played better this year, but there's now a bad aura about him because of kind of the off-the-field stuff with Denver and the commercials and the personal, teammates not having his cell phone number and the personal QB coach and the clashes with Peyton. And, there are a lot of former NFL players that are cranky about the way that the Broncos have handled this whole thing. I think there are a lot of people that just think Russell Wilson's a little bit odd. I just can't see any way. Sean Payton is far too strong-willed to have some sort of kumbaya and get this thing back in order. He's going to move on and figure something else out at this point. And, if you're Sean, I mean, you had it so good in New Orleans with Drew, and now you got to find that next guy, and it's just really, really hard. It's very rare that an organization backs up Brett Favre there and Rodgers. That just doesn't happen all that often. Pittsburgh's wandering in the desert. New England's absolutely lost. The Saints haven't figured anything out. These guys start to retire, and it's tough. So I don't think there's any way that Russell Wilson is coming back to Denver. So that'll do it for Take It or Leave It. Fun show today. Open things up. Talking about LSU and Vanderbilt. Tigers got a really nice win last night. One they needed to get against a bad team on their home floor. They start 2-0 in league play, which is as good as you can do. And so I'm excited to see where this thing goes from here. A little concerned about where it goes on Saturday because they play Auburn over there at what was Auburn Arena. But good win last night for LSU over Vanderbilt. I opened the show with that. JD PicKell, our last segment with our guy JD from On3 Sports, talking all things college football with JD as we did every Wednesday all season long. He was with us at 1:15. 1:30 is when the news broke. Bo Davis coming to LSU to be LSU's defensive line coach. Big get for the Tigers as they pry him away from Austin and back to his alma mater. And I broke down really the whole situation at defensive line with Wingo and Smith leaving and then Bo Davis is coming in, and what does that mean for LSU. If you missed that, you can catch it on YouTube, Hunt on LSU, where you can find all of our LSU content on YouTube. If you subscribe to that channel, all our LSU stuff just going to feed right into your homepage. So we appreciate all those that have done so thus far. 1:45, it was a What If Wednesday. Talked about playing golf in the cold and reliving any year of your entire life. At 2 o'clock, we talked about LSU's offense and statistically what it was this past year. And it's really amazing to put it all down on paper and kind of digest what LSU's offense accomplished this year from a statistical perspective and from an awards perspective. It was cool to dive into that. Hat tip to the folks over at LSU for getting us that information. 2:15, our first dip into the baseball waters. Got a little bit of an itch for LSU baseball. I want to hear what I had to say. I dove into Jay Johnson, sit down with Koki Riley, and kind of the answers that he gave there. So that's at 2:15. And then where's Jayden Daniels headed in the NFL draft? I think we're learning a little bit as things move forward with NFL hirings and firings. You can catch all of that on demand at 1045ESPN.com's On Demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find your sound, you can find us. We'll be at Rouse's tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Matt Moscona is about to drive you home on After Further Review. See you tomorrow. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further. Like vans customized for work or play,